Cool, you can see me. Is the sound okay, Gareth? It's hi Jeremy. Sound decent? It's hard to tell because I can't hear it myself. If I had some cans on I would, but I'm very unprepared. I'm okay, Gareth. It's pretty good. I'm very nervous because it's streaming and it feels like you're kind of exposing yourself to the internet. And I have no idea what I'm doing. Totally unprepared, as usual. Only vague ideas. I spent about 5 minutes rambling about what I'm going to do, but I think the Wi-Fi was offline, so nobody's even heard. I don't have a fancy green screen or anything, so unfortunately you're stuck with a background behind me, which is just a bookshelf. You know where I can say as I can't talk when I hear myself. Pre-record, yeah. Don't you do zero latency monitoring so you can hear yourself at the exact latency that you're speaking? I don't know how. Yeah, sometimes if you haven't got a dedicated audio device, sometimes you don't have a zero latency input. At the moment I'm using my Focusrite 212 and it's got the gain display showed on green on the front, so if I shout the gain bar will go orange and I know that it's distorting, but the gain's almost full because the mic I've got needs quite a large amount of gain with your amplifier setup with the audio interface. But it's also got a headphone input, so you can actually hear exactly as it records as well, or as it comes through. So there's no delay. When I record guitar and things like that, even something like a 6-7 millisecond delay is really off-putting if you're playing something that's single notes, like the echo. Like a 6 millisecond delay is like being 20 foot back from the guitar or the sound source, so it can be quite distracting. So definitely recommend getting something like that. But like I said to you in the messages, the more you spend on that device, the better quality of amplifiers you get. So you can crank up the volume and not get any distortion. Yeah, I got the Focus 2i2 from that online German shop that sells audio equipment, Thomann or something like that. And I got it was what was it called? It was an opened box, so I got like 15 euros off it. So it was something like 90 euros or something like that. And then the shotgun mic, it's renowned for having like a crispy audio rather than a deeper, boomier one. I found that when I use a condenser mic, my voice sounded quite boomy. Hi there, Chusk3. Welcome to the stream. I haven't actually done anything yet, it's just staring at this blank screen. Gareth said he could see applicatives somewhere. So where's applicatives? Right, so the idea of this stream was there was going to be 3 different projects. Project 1 was... what was Project 1? Project 1 was to build on the game series I did with Monogame, but live streaming it to build a platform game, something along that lines. I'm not doing that today, but something I hope to do a bit more on. Possibly change it so that I might experiment with a dynamic language like Ruby, just to compare the speed of creativity compared with a statically typed language. So that's one plan, that's Project A. Project B is to continue on with the emulator program that I was doing with fsharp. Lately I've been extending that with Rust, which kind of works. Rust works kind of well to a point. and then you get to a certain part where you kind of need to involve the mine's gone blank, the lifetime parameters and stuff, and then it kind of doesn't go so well. There's lots of annotations. You end up with generic type annotations and lifetime annotations, and it becomes a bit of a pain to manage. And also annotating closures and things like that to move the ownership. It becomes a bit of a pain. So fsharp emulator with Rust. What I meant was I was building a CPU emulator in Rust, not a fsharp emulator in Rust. Sorry, I was confusing there. Yeah, the monogame one probably will be fun. I've not done any preparation for that, so it's kind of difficult to just jump in. I can't even remember the stuff that I wrote for the YouTube series last summer. CPU, Gareth, it would probably be the best 16-bit CPU, the 68000. But I'm also tempted to build a 6502C, which was in the Atari Lynx. So it's kind of like a normal 6502 with some extended instructions. 65C816, isn't that the SNES chip? 65C816? Hitachi? Can't remember. Can be a bit of a pain with the different memory modes. Yeah, the SNES chip, yeah. Yeah, that's the first streamer that got me into watching streams was now my brain's gone blank, as usual. Ferris Streams stuff. I haven't watched that for ages now, but that kind of got me into that. No, it wasn't Jeff or Javid X9. It was Ferris Streams stuff. Ferris Stream stuff. This guy. That's one loud keyboard. It isn't actually loud, it's just the mic's straight above it. I'm probably thumping on the keyboard. It could be that the gain's too high on this. I mean, let me see, when I'm talking normally it's the top end of the green spectrum, so if I turn this down a little. That still is loud? That's the problem, shotguns are very directional, so because it's diagonally up from me, it picks up the keyboard. Try and tweak it slightly. What about this for keyboard loudness? That still is loud? Cool, that's better then. Yeah, it's normally with shotguns you point them at 45-degree angle. But when I do that, it points directly at my keyboard, so if I'm typing or thumping on it, then you'll hear it a lot louder. Anything game emulatory sounds interesting to me because I've got zero experience in those areas, even though after 15 years of coding. Pretty much the same here for Gareth. Yeah, it's emulator programming is one of those things that's quite difficult to get into, especially when you start to emulate the CPU timing. And it gets really difficult to get those exact timings because you have to simulate memory transfers and things like that. So so it can get a bit gnarly. And also to calculate things like flags, if you're adding and subtracting numbers, the overflow flags, they're things you never deal with day to day because the arithmetic logic unit does everything for you, and you don't really need to know about things like that. So those things can be really difficult to program in a regular language because you can't access the ALU direct to get the flags out for overflow, carry, and all that kind of thing. So it's a bit of a pain. But other than that, it's quite fun learning about some of the old architecture. But then it gets really difficult to emulate some of the screen or some of the old graphics cards and things like that. Obviously, with modern hardware, it's more than powerful enough to emulate the older stuff. Right, so I have to make a start on this. So let me bring up item. Like I said, I wanted to do some more prep for this, but it took me so long to set up OBS to get a decent amount of CPU usage, because I was getting something like 25% CPU just streaming a blank screen, which is crazy. So I managed to get it down to, at the moment it's 9% CPU, but I can hear the fans borderline wanting to turn on, which is going to disrupt the audio slightly. Bring this terminal up. So what I want to do is I don't think I even explained Project C. Project C was to build like a chatbot which could kind of connect with my development environment, so that you could ask the chatbot something about the code on my screen and it would answer telling you something about it. Like you could say, hey chatbot, what's the type on line 26 at column 14 or something like that, and then the chatbot would reply back in the chat saying, oh yeah, that's a int star int or something like that. I thought it would be cool to have a connection from my source on my screen that I'm streaming through to the chat. And how I'll do it, I don't know yet. I just think it was one of those cool ideas which might be useful. Certainly useful when you're streaming if somebody wants to know what a type is, especially with something like Visual fsharp, where you normally have an IDE and you can hover on a type. But obviously if you're watching someone stream, you can't hover on a type, you have to ask them or to stare at the code until you figured out what the type might be. Could I increase the size of my terminal font? Yeah, it is super tiny. So what size is that? I've recently modified my terminal, so I was putting a Powerline font on. Now it's just like, yeah, this is just your local directory. And ChatHusk says, I know most of the FCS APIs you'd need to power that actually. Yeah, I do too, which is why I thought it might be interesting to do, because firstly you could use the checker and basically ask the checker what's on line 34 and it would give you a type. But then the infrastructure to get that from the chatbot from vscode is kind of interesting. And possibly it might be interesting just to see like bolting pieces onto FCS so that you can get an idea of how the tooling side of things work and how the APIs into the fsharp compiler work. Because that's something that not many people look into and not many people know stuff about, so I thought it could be relevant in that ways as well. Gareth says, I know nothing of FCS, not the compiler in general, so to me this is a full black box. Yeah, it is quite tricky to get into. it's very easy to say, oh, more people should contribute to the compiler, but it's not an easy thing to do. It's not something that that's immediately obvious anyway. So what I'm going to do is make a directory called, what can we call this? Project C, just for the sake of it. Because this is Project C that I mentioned about the chatbot. I thought what we'd start with is just hacking together some simple console app to self type check itself. So you could ask it what the type was on line 34 of itself, and it would tell you back, and put that into a small test harness just to get a feel for the APIs, because I've forgotten how this stuff works now as well, and I thought that might be a good example into the checker. And then we could probably expand that. You could probably host FS Auto in Azure, give it the code that's on my screen, and put some interfaces around that to communicate to and from vscode to the chatbot. But obviously that's a long way into the future. So Gara says, I have an idea on the IRC API that Twitch uses. Okay, cool, that might be useful when we actually get to that. Like I said, I've not looked at the APIs. I think I read there was a document about how to build a bot with Twitch, and it was basically making it say hello to a exclamation mark prefix command, and I've never read it, but I know that document's on the internet somewhere. So that's my only research into this so far. And then Chetusk says, ideally you should find a way to share the checker that Ironide is already using. Yeah, that could be a plan, but you'd probably have to hack Ironide, but then that could be fine too. I could install a custom Ironide which shares the type check information. I know that that Chris actually put the cache into Ironide, so you could probably just query the current cache to pull out a type as well. And I'm not too worried about recompilation. I'm just kind of interested in the general architecture, or making something cool that might not exist. I thought it'd be kind of cool to type something into the chat window like chatbot. What's line 37? What type is it? Or something like that. Or you could say chatbot benchmark me function thread, and then you could go off and start something off in the cloud to do a benchmark dotnet wrapper around the function, and you could time it and then type it back into the chat client. I thought that would be cool, although whose Azure credits it would use, I don't know. Right, back to what we were doing before, which I've completely forgotten. Creating a new console app just to test an idea with basically using the fsharp checker to check itself, just to refresh our brains on how the checker works. Let me check, is this stream gone down again? God. No. I need more screens. I've only got my main monitor 27-inch on my laptop, and I need to get more, but I need to earn some money to pay for more things first. Right, so I'm not getting any drop frames. I've had to drop this down to 30 frames a second just to make sure it wasn't I wasn't giving my MacBook too much work to do. So there's no frame drop yet. Oh, my chat window's disappeared. It's going to be a bit of a catastrophe, this stream. Right. Console app test. Ooh. new console. Okay, so we've got a brand new console project. Next step, VSC, load that into Visual Studio Code. So far so good, and just checking my network stats again. No, still nothing dropped. Just don't have any space on all these windows. I've got my stats window on my Mac screen, and then I've got the chat window, and then I've got the OBS console, so I definitely need another monitor for this. Right. So now, yeah, I'm going to get rid of Slack. Don't need that. Actually, I don't need Photoshop running. And I had a reference to fsharp compiler service. It should be fun. Frank says he uses his phone or iPad as a second screen to check chat windows. Yeah, I should do that. My iPad's on the floor down there somewhere. And my iPhone's actually down here, but not very well prepared. Actually, I'll get this up on my... I'll do it there. I need to actually get some content on the screen. Right. So what I want to do is run this program, but what I want to do is use the compiler to tell us very simple, just as a proof of concept, to as a kind of as a prelude to the real work, is to given a line and column within the current code file, tell us what the type is, and when we'll use itself as the reference point, so it'll tell us a type on line 6 of itself, just kind of as a proof of concept of, and a bit of practice into using fsharp compiler service. Before we get into anything really interesting, I think it is source code services is the main area we need. We probably need range or something like that, but I forget now. And then I think it's called an fsharp checker. Create one of those. Do we need? Is it a default one? Create. That'll do. Not really fussed on what we pass to it. Project cache size, don't care. Keep assembly contents. Actually, we'll probably set that to true just to make sure we have those. What else have we got? Legacy reference resolver. Don't even recall what that is. Try get metadata snapshot. Are you still there, Chet Husk? Are these new things that were added recently to fsharp compiler service, the try get metadata snapshot and legacy reference resolver? I don't recall them. With regards to the fsharp streaming, I kind of stopped streaming because I can't actually remember. I think I just got tired of the emulator programming, and I was doing another project called Soothsayer, and I kind of got a bit stuck with it because of the interface or the interaction between the fsharp DLLs and fsharp core was a bit painful, and I kind of, how time just goes past and you just forget about streaming. And then I started doing the YouTube stuff because I wanted to create kind of polished videos, and then I didn't realise that when you create a polished video, you kind of like an hour per minute of edited footage, and then your entire life and hobbies just involve editing videos, and it just kind of takes over. And then you kind of get involved in the whole YouTube stats thing of getting subscribers and things, and it kind of locks you into making videos, even though you might not be in the mood to do it. So, and I had Patreon at the time, so the whole thing kind of felt a bit draining, so that's why I stopped doing the YouTube videos and stopped doing the Patreon. And I figured that doing some live coding would be a good way to share some of my experience and have a bit of a laugh, making some bits and pieces, cross-pollinate ideas and build some funky bits and pieces. So that's why I'm back doing the streaming again. So let me catch up on the chat. I've been neglecting that bit. So ChatHusk is saying that the acceptable.defaults are okay for more cases and about tweaking them. Yeah, Frank, so remembering which parts to use and which you shouldn't is kind of difficult. There's sometimes secret options that you can pass to FCS with input parameters and stuff, which differs from the API, so you can pass different things in, and those are really hard to remember. I was helping a guy on Stack Overflow with issues with the checker or the dynamic compiler, and passing in a list of options in the front was the only really way to get around the fact that you didn't know some of the API. Gareth says, is there a good beginner's guide? You can look at the documentation. Some of it's slightly out of date, some of it doesn't work properly, but generally you can kind of follow them and it'll work. The new API stuff's probably not there. Gareth says, did this come before Roslyn? All this checker stuff was well before Roslyn. Some of the APIs appeared after Roslyn. It was kind of the time that I was doing a lot of work with Don to expose some of the APIs for some of the Xamarin Studio API integration with the compiler for tooling, and also some of the work Eric was doing for dynamic compilation led to some extra APIs. So they've kind of come in over the years, but it's kind of completely separate to anything in Roslyn. Grumpy Game Dev, hi there. What, a third fsharp developer? Yes, third one. Who was number 3 though? Is that me or was? Yeah, I've actually done fsharp streaming years and years ago, so I'm probably the third known one. And Frank says, in continuous, I think we use every one of those options, but good to know that you don't usually need to. Yeah. And continuous uses a custom version of FCS with lots of stuff turned off, like type providers, and is there some quotation stuff turned off as well, Frank? And then chat says the sucky part is the project options. Yeah, that's really arcane, those project options. I find it's kind of really awful. Yeah, type providers using reflection, you mate, that was it, yeah. I mean, this is some of the stuff we played at with in Xamarin when I was doing the fsharp playgrounds. It was trying to get FCS compiling with iOS, and unfortunately the project got killed due to priorities and things like that, so it never actually got finished. And then sometime later after that, Frank got a lot of this stuff working in getting FCS working inside iOS by ripping lots of the junk out. At the time I didn't think of ripping the junk out, I was just trying to work around getting it working, which is probably the wrong way to do it. But yeah, cancellation support. It was the fsharp checker used to leak memory at one point as well, which was awful, and yet to kind of, the whole thing was kind of wrapped inside a separate process. Yeah, one of the big things in the fsharp compiler is it's got a lot of mutable state and nothing really runs in parallel, and it's not really very easy to do. I know Eric done some work years and years back to try and parallelize it, but there was so much global state, it was just, he got frustrated and kind of rage quit developing anything in the compiler, which is a shame, because he added some useful APIs so that you could do passing in an AST and get the compiler to compile just the AST, which is quite useful, because then you can kind of do AOT type work. Not AOT, what do you call it? I've forgotten what it's called now. Like annotated attributes and things to compile around things. Kind of similar to the stuff I was doing with Myriad, where you can attribute a type with fields or something, and it will generate all the lambda expression for each field within the record, things like that. Let me just check chat. Frank's saying, yeah, I am a hacker. Yes, you are, Frank. I mean, having the hacking mentality is really good, because you can kind of experiment with things which might not be easily possible, and push the boundaries, and you can kind of come up with some new features which you wouldn't think of before. And of course, getting things working quick is a good way to protect features, especially being an app developer as well. So now we've got a checker, and then actually get something done. Let's see. God, I'm so rusty with this, I can't actually remember anything about how it works. So basically we're going to just for the sake of it, we're going to do line equals 9, hard code it to death. Column equals, I don't know what column it is. Column 10. No idea what I'm doing yet, but check file in project. I need pass results. I think you can get both of these at once. Getting things done. Is that what streams are for? I've been doing it wrong. Yeah. I found that last time I'd done streams, I'd done more time answering questions or looking at API docs than actually writing code, but the interactions were what people find really valuable. So I also found it frustrating, which is ended up which is what ended up with me doing YouTube videos to try and cut out all of the crap and just make a YouTube video of actually getting stuff done, squash it into 10 minutes, and then hoping people can understand it. All fsharp streams ever. What is the pipe for? Yeah, I've had that a couple of times in the past. The forward pipe is to forward pipe things. It's one of the things people seem to struggle with, the concept of moving the parameter on the left-hand side to the function on the right-hand side with intermediate parameters passed in before it. It kind of, the whole thing just sounds complicated before you start. Fubari sits for extra star points, yeah. Sometimes though, I found over time of F-sharp, the forward pipelining can become a bit tiresome and a bit distracting. I mean, I might be the only one who feels like this, but sometimes fluent code in C# looks better, but it's coming from an F# person, that's probably a punishable offense, but sometimes fluent code just flows nice. Pipelines can be overused. The pipe left ones definitely are. I don't use them very often. I kind of use them when I'm quickly hacking something together to save me going to the right hand side of the line to do a parenthesis. Frank says chaotic evil to use the right pipe. Yeah, it is. A lot of people like to use them. I don't tend to. Yeah, the double right pipe is even worse. Punishable by death. I don't think I've ever used the double right pipe, double left pipe, sorry. Yeah, as Gareth says, for debugging, don't use pipelines. It's easy to put each one on a let. To be honest, sometimes a code like that got on a let bindings in a row, and then you would pipeline them when you don't have to debug them anymore. But then if you do have to debug in the future, it can be a bit of a pain. And then you can, one of the strategies is to add tap in the middle, so you can examine the middle of a pipeline, or to overload the right pipe operator so you can debug it so it's not inlined. So those two strategies. And then Frank says the function application operator makes you feel smart. It kind of does. I worked on a project about 7 years ago where we ended up composing a lot of functions together with the function application. Is it function application operator? I can't remember. The double chevron thing. And it kind of looked really cool. It kind of simplified the code a bit. And then you come back to it in a week, and then you kind of, what does all this stuff do? And you can't really see the types properly because it's all like merged together, and we took it out, and I've never really used it much since. I find it obfuscates the code a little. It's okay if you just compose a little tiny function together, but you can kind of get carried away really easily. Composition, yes. Fubarius one says, yeah, debugging is not that nice with piping. Yeah, it's pretty much impossible to do unless you overload the pipeline operator, add a tap in the middle, or rip it out and do it separate bindings. It can be really painful. So Frank says, yeah, I use that in sequence.star functions. Yeah, I mean, everything's useful, but you can overuse things and you can be too smart for your own good sometimes. Sometimes it comes down to whether who's going to be maintaining your code. If you work for yourself and it's only your code and you're maintaining it, then you can kind of fill your boots to some extent. But sometimes you have to work for somebody else, and somebody else has to understand it. And then sometimes the future you can't understand the past you's code either. So it's getting a nice balance. Yeah, when you Gareth's saying if you get to a point where you need to define your own operators can often be bonkers. Using the apply operator, the left chevron asterisk, right chevron for apply and map. I find them very hard. If you've been using them recently, it's kind of easy to do. I mean, I have been using them quite recently for some bits and pieces. But once you get out of the zone of using them, you often forget how they work. And also, if you try to convert a applicative stream of functions back into how they actually look as properly applied functions, it's kind of, you could end up looking like some weird Lisp. And it's really hard to reverse that flow back into kind of normal code. So Fubarius one says, hey, but an applicative CE is coming along with fsharp 5. Yeah, the applicative AND operator is coming in, and it will, the biggest thing I think it will give us is optimizations, so that things like parsers and bits and pieces like that will run faster. That's the biggest thing I can see out of that. Yeah, the let bang and bang, that is the applicative CE that Fubarius one was referring to. Applicative AND. Is that what it's called? I think it's called applicative AND. There's basically optimization so that when you do let bang and bang and bang, all three of them are mapped to a function at the same time, rather than them being chained together as functions. So you kind of get one function call rather than 3 or 4. So it's a massive performance boost for those CE type operations. Frank says, is there a blog or something about those? There was something that Philip wrote about it, I think. Or there's a, if someone could link the, there. Are you thinking applicative? Yeah, that's the one that was wrote. It's a Markdown document describing it. Yeah, if you look through that, you can kind of get an idea of what's involved with it. It's you can take some reading though when you're not sure with applicatives. The main thing is it would give us a performance boost for combining several different things in an applicative kind of parallel sense of the notion of monads. Now I've just kind of gone off on to functional programming speak, but it's performance is the key thing that we'll get from that. I'm sure we'll get some funky computation expressions from that as well though. Mate, back to this code because I'm not getting anywhere with this. I've probably been streaming for an hour and got like nothing done. So we need to check file and projects. Let me see, check file and project. The problem with making my font bigger so you guys can read it is that the tooltips look like shit. I thought why aren't these tooltips formatted nicely anymore? Let me just squeeze my font down just a second, just to see why these are. Does anyone know why the tooltips are crap? Actually, I don't even need the screen, so I'm going to. There we go. Bit more screen space. Let me check backward chat because I can't keep up. 15 lines of code per hour is pretty good for me. Yeah, that's probably what I'm going to get. Yeah, I suppose I got 15. But some of these came from the template, so I've probably only got 4, 5. You know, get anything done and seeing that sign of a good streamer, making the audience #1. Well, I suppose that's me then. The tips for pants on mine too. Those tooltips were something that I built on when I was working for Xamarin. I spent a good period of time making the tooltips nicer, and then Chris ported the code across, and made it available for Ironite too. I mean, those tooltips look fine, but these ones, they're awful. Like, I can't read that at all. It's almost as bad as C#. That's a joke, by the way. And Frank says, thanks for that, I love the fsharp tooltips. Yeah, that was kind of a labour of love. It was, I think I'd done some polls on Twitter years and years ago saying, how would someone feel about column formatting the tooltips and then using line feeds to, because we've got a whole lot of space on the screen to present the tooltip. Why not use some of it up? I know lately that vscode has kind of gone against the grain and give us like a tiniest little piece of space for the tooltips. It's kind of ruined it a bit. So it makes sense to, especially with curried type functions where you're partially applying things, it kind of makes sense. And also tupled ones where every parameter in the function, if they're formatted down screen, they're easy to see rather than it being all munged like on the screen now. It's awful to see. So this must be regression. It must be that the advanced tools tip is returning none, and Chris has reverted to using the standard tooltips, which is just that wall of text, I'm guessing. So why is that like that? So check file and project. Compile dynamics assembly. No, I'm going to cheat. I'm going to grab some of the sample because I'm going to be forever doing this. Let me grab some of the sample from that documentation that ChitHusk posted earlier and just get it going quicker if I can find it. Compile service key, there we go. Untyped DST, tokenizer, compiler. Now, I'll put this on the screen so you can see what I'm looking for while I'm looking for it. So I've been ignorant and staring at my second monitor. Alright, so what we want is to use the API just to get the type from a certain line. And we'll use that just to bootstart us on this process of creating a bot for Twitch to give us tips, or requesting the Twitch bot to give us a tooltip or type from a certain line of code that's on my screen. Processing untyped AST, isn't that what we want to do? Blah blah blah, get untyped tree. What kind of a decoration, put things together. I think we want the checked one, because I want the checked output. Edit services. Checker options. So this is the kind of stuff you'd have to read through, Gareth, to get the gist of it, but hopefully I can copy and paste some chunks and kind of explain it as we go, so we can go through some of the compiler functions to get types from lines like this. Parameter information. We don't want parameter information, we just want a tooltip. We don't actually want a tooltip, we just want the check file results, which is this. Check file results, pass and check file and project. Yeah, so I'll snap this, put that on the screen. And we'll just retrofit what we need. Let me put the chat back on so I can see it. scroll back down. Can you link the site for us? Oh yeah, so it was one that was linked before, but I'll put this on here. Huh. It was this one in particular I was looking at just then. It was the editor services. Just trying to see how much lag is there on the stream. There's about 7 seconds lag on the stream. So I think YouTube's a lot worse. I think that's like 15 to 20 seconds lag. And it could be my connection is just appalling, but there's nothing much I can do about that. I'm just going to check my stream stats again. It'd be nice when I can not bother to check this. I'm not getting any drop packets now, which is good. Unfortunately, I've had to drop back down to... actually, I've dropped 2 frames, which is not bad for the time it's been on. Bitrate's only 1500, which is not amazing. I think with the streaming I've got set up with the GPU on the Mac, it's using the inbuilt Intel graphics card, because you just can't get the external. You can't get the. I've got a Radeon 555 in my MacBook Pro, but you just can't use that at all. You can only use the internal graphics card, which is a shame. I'm kind of tempted to get a Windows PC and NVIDIA hardware, just because this kind of support is so poor on Macs. I know Gareth's got some decent hardware in that department. And Gareth says apparently I'm 1.5 seconds behind. Okay, well that's pretty good then. I'm just basing my stats on me moving my head and then checking my stream for when it updates. And then Rise-Out Active Controller 23. Always nice to get notification for a new stream like building stuff with fsharp. I am about to design banners, icons and overlays for your channel. Oh, cool. Overlays is one of the things I was trying to do this afternoon, but I just never got time to do it. It's one of them I spent ages trying to get the CPU down to respectable less than 10%, because otherwise my fan comes on at around 14%, which means that the mic would pick up the fan noise, which is annoying. I think I've enabled some Twitch integrations on this, so I think if I get a follower or things like that, I'll get one of them daft animations pops up at the bottom. That's probably all I've put on. Right, so back to the stream. So what we need is, first of all, to get any type check results, you have to do a certain amount of passes through the compiler. The code has to be passed and type checked, and then from then on you can use the results of the last passing to get more results. So this pass and check file in project. The tooltips are better now. I think what it is the completion is screwed, but the tooltips are fine. Yeah, that's so much nicer to look at. Right. I'm almost out of water, so I might have to take a quick break to get some more in a minute. Okay, I'm just reading the chat. There's a whole host of emoticons in there. So a file has to be, I haven't defined a file, so that file equals, and this is going to be really meta, and the file is going to be itself. So can we define that as file? Oh, I can't spell. And Chehosk is saying, Maxime has a work in progress pull request to unify all the places where we're in the tooltips so that all have the nice styles. Yeah, it's, as far as I'm aware, there was two places where they were used. There's one place where it was used for the tooltips, and another place for the document generation, and for this this kind of stuff. So it shouldn't be too hard to unify them. I mean, it is. It's so much nicer to view it like this because you can see what's what a lot easier. I mean, rather than like that, you can't make sense of that. It's really hard to keep a context of what line you're on or what parameter you're on. Even like this, it's difficult. It won't even give me the. This is what really annoys me with some of the tooling. It's just like, yeah, we're not going to give you the right parameters. We're just going to give you some random strings. Unless you get it compiling, it's not going to show you any parameter helps. Yeah, continues probably does. Yeah. It's actually Visual Studio for Mac probably gives you better tips, better completion tips than vscode. I think it's more to do with the API, and the fsharp complete is a little bit different in the way it's used, because in Visual Studio for Mac, fsharp autocomplete isn't used at all. It's kind of all handwritten. Well, not handwritten, but written from scratch just to get things done. There was a big chunk of work when Roslyn appeared to rewrite all of that. So at that point, there was a crossover between. Originally, there was a repo called fsharp binding, which had fsharp autocomplete inside it, and both Visual Studio for Mac or mono developers, it's also called, was using that as well as the Emacs binding, and also fsharp autocomplete. So kind of all using the code, and then it diverged over the last 7 years or so. So Frank says VS for Mac does, but it's a little too aggressive of making them disappear. Yeah, I think Jason put some optimizations in where it wouldn't request for tooltips unless it was deemed absolutely necessary. And some of those came from one of your bug requests, Frank, where, can you remember that one where there was an auto property which was causing the tooling to go into overdrive and requesting loads and loads of completions, so it kind of slowed to a halt. That led to us making the tooling not request things from the compiler as much, because it really slows down the compiler queue. So it was kind of a result from that. But the annoying thing in Visual Studio for Mac is those kind of things where you move off the tooltips. I think that if you move off the line, it disappears, whereas in VS Code, at least you can kind of move your mouse around to here and it only disappears if I exit that box. Yeah, me too. I always want them to be displayed. If I've got a tooltip on the screen, unless I kind of click or move a lot away from where it is, I kind of I'm reading it. Right, I'm going to take a quick break to get some more water, and I'll be back in a couple of minutes, and then we'll solve this file issue. Back in 2 minutes. Right. Yeah, Frank says, I remember filing the slowdown bug, and then one day everything was fast and never knew how. Yeah, that was how basically I think whenever you type get comma, I can't remember what it was, but there's just a line of code in there that says if you put get comma, don't send it to the compiler, just wait for a bit. And that slowly evolved to a few more rules, like if the end of the line compiles with removing the comma, don't send it, or there's various rules like that to basically to minimize anything being sent to the compiler, because it goes into a big queue. And I don't really know why it was slow, but that was the line that was slow. It was just bombarding the compiler with the changes, really. Gareth says, does the double backtick syntax still crash Cyanide? Like that? Tets? What's tets? Which syntax is that, Gareth? That's because the thing that's crashing is the VS Code token highlighter. It's the regex based, and there's a bug in the regex or the double backtick identifiers. Chatbot says. Can anybody remember what you use to get the current file name? Or is that only applicable in scripts? And then JetHusk says there's a new API for LSP based highlighting instead of just regex. And then JetHusk says that the file name is only a unique identifier. It can be anything you want it. It can be anything you want. Well, what I want is just the name of the current file. And Gareth says, the one that really annoyed me was when I was writing tests, because I love doing things like let test equals something here. The double tick syntax, yeah, file name, that's right guys. JetHusk and Fubarius1. What was I saying? The double tick syntax has caused quite a few bugs in the fsharp tooling over the years. I think it's really just because of the parsers that have been used to like the regex parsers, or the what's the applicative style syntax parser called? What's it called? fparsec. fparsec. Those are an fparsec based checker for fsharp and the regex one, and I just don't think they represented some of the syntax of fsharp, so there's been some outstanding bugs around that. And then also there was ones to do with, I think there's recent ones in the documentation that I think I fixed some in Hacktoberfest to do that. Actually, I've got my Hacktoberfest t-shirt on. I don't know whether you can see it because I'm slightly off camera. I've got that onto there. Get one of those if you do 5 pull requests during Hacktober. Untitled Scotland has got a file name. Has it all uppercase? Or is it source file? No double quotes. It is source file. Right, so this is our source file. So pass check file and project. Current file name, file version, give it 0 because we don't really care what version it is. The version is used if we need to keep a record of what version a document has changed through time, so the checker can know if it's older or newer than one it's previously checked. Source text is source text of string input. So this is going to be slightly meta because we need to read the string of the source file that we're in at the moment, which sounds a bit strange. So source file of string import, so we'll do current source text text equals, oh, we'll need to open system IO. I can't type at all. Every time I seem to do a lowercase s. Apologies if my typing's really loud, Gareth. I mean, I've got one of these to put on my mic, but I don't think that'll help. It's really just for his windshield filter. Oh yeah, source text. So source text will be file dot create text, and then we'll pass in file. Actually, we'll call this file name because let's start with good intentions. It is really an arcane input into the compiler. And Gareth says, typing in the stream is a lot harder than typing in a real world. I struggle no matter what I think. Every time I go to type system, I always do lowercase s. I must fumble with the shift key. I'm not a particularly good typer. I can't actually touch type at all, so play guitar, play arpeggios really fast. It seems to be impossible for me to learn to touch type. I just don't have the patience for it. And I've got away with it for this long. It's really hard to get into it now. Then the grumpy game title says, it's not difficult to say it out loud as you type it. Yeah, but saying out loud capital S, it's I don't think that'll help me. Gareth says, also I can't touch type, my typing is very slow. Yeah, it's one of the things when I worked at Xamarin that Miguel suggested me, his pro tip was learn to touch type, but never done it. Is there a key command to send the text fsharp interactive alt and enter? Yeah, Gareth replies with. Or you can remap the send file to whatever. So Chet Husk, is there a command to send all the references that I have in this project to fsharp interactive? And Frank says, I use FSI way more than you. Well, I haven't used it at all yet, so that's not saying much. Tito says, not yet. I have a prototype. I did write that for VS for Mac a long time ago, and I haven't had a chance to port it or anything. And then the Grumpy Game dev says, so divisive straw poll, result unit string, or just string options for things that may or may not return an error, with the string being the T error. I would say it really depends if you care about the error. If you don't care about the error at all, I would just return an option. If you do, oh, so I see, result option string. The unit is a successful case. Yeah, I wouldn't like that result unit string. You just have result OK or result error. That would be how I would define it. And then FreeWire one says if it's not returned anything, it must either run indefinitely or do effects. Well, the idea behind a result type is you either get your result or you get the error. It's like one or the other. I would have no qualms from throwing an exception. If something doesn't work and you're not going to handle it, just throw and let it blow up. Deal with it above. And then FreeWire says, but if there is no OK. Grumpy Game Dev says, I'm going to be going through my Nugget packages and result T error on many of the things, and the string comes from SDL get error. And then Frank says, I follow try functions, return option or throw in other cases. Yeah, if something's prefixed with try, I would expect it to return an option. If it doesn't, then it's possible it could throw. I think that's fine, and the fsharp call library mainly adheres to something like that. You see a lot of early fsharp code in prototypes where you've got list.head, which will throw if there's no head. And sometimes when you quickly hack something together, you don't care because you know there is a head. And obviously you have to update that when you're not in control of the input data. Since SDL is very statey, it has lots of things that can fail but doesn't produce a result. Well, you could always have an error type which was no result, but you know it was an error. So you could model the entire error branch of a particular SDL function with an error result, one which was unspecified, I suppose. I've done that before in Swift. I can't remember what API I was dealing with, but it was you'd have a batch of different errors in a discriminated union, and one of them was just, there was an error, but it was like some error, not an option. One thing I streamed a while back was Elmifying. Actually, it was a stream on YouTube the other day that I reposted from 9 months ago, and it was Elmifying monogame. And one of the things I'd like to do is Elmify SDL. Create a simple interface into SDL where you could only give it sprites, lines, shapes, and that's about it. And you kind of just play over a very simple API, and you could get a 2D game very fast just using those simple building blocks. I think that would be an interesting thing to build. Let me check I've answered everything on the codes. So Jehusk says, the hard part isn't sending the session to FSI, the hard part is keeping the set of options included in the type check environment so that you have in Ionide. So what you have in Ionide is type checkable. Isn't that the same as making sure you send all of the current project options to FSI? Or is it that FSI has an inherently different model of modeling references and dependencies than the project? So back to this, for this parameter we need a source text, which is a nominal type that was introduced to represent some text. And to get one of these we use the source text of string, passing in. That was wrong. Passing in what we read from the file. Ooh, quick fix. There we go. I like it when these things work. Current source text. It's stream writer. I don't want to create text. How come nobody told me I got this wrong? Read all lines. Read all text. Read all lines. Read all text. Yeah, I can't read the chat and type at the same time, unfortunately. The Grumpy Game Dev. Checklist says, you're right, it's the same model as think more of starting an FSI session, but with a dedicated view. I think when you start an FSI session within a project, you should always be giving it the project options from your project, so it's always in line, because I don't think you would have a project. Well, I suppose you can have a script file in a project, but I think it should be completely in context of the project that it's in. Because why would it not be? It doesn't, because that's where the dependency issues is. You'd go from a script file into your project and you find that the dependency tree wasn't fulfilled, and you can get problems with opens and things like that where nothing will open because we haven't got the reference properly. Let me just respond to a chat. So I'm just looking at my notifications in Twitch. There's a few of them about. So, right, I'm going to write some more code now. So, we need project options. I really hate dealing with these project options. So the Grumpy Game Dev, have you ever done any experiments with making an SDL type game with the Elm architecture or an Elmish type format? I find that a lot of the game architectures just don't fit into the Elm architecture that easily, because I managed to get monogame working, but the event loop part was very CPU intensive. I ended up with like 3 or 4% CPU just in the Windows event loop. I never managed to look into it in any details. It's sync context stuff. Yeah, functional languages are not that good a fit for games, but they can be an interesting thing just to hack on them, just to try and make them work. I mean, if you can get a game into the ARM architecture efficiently, or into something like that, you could keep, for instance, a huge list of state. I mean, it's technically unfeasible to keep too much, and then rewind the game and things like that. So I once saw an implementation of an emulator in Clojure where you could actually rewind the entire emulator back, but I think it worked at like 2 frames a second or something like that. And there was also an emulator in Haskell which used monad transformers, and that ended up being 5 frames a second. So, hi Chris. So, yeah, the Grumpy Game says games are nothing but states and nothing but side effects. Yeah, it is true. I think you can harness some of the power of functional languages to represent some of the constructs in the games quite well and get some of the benefits from static type checking. But then you pay the price that to modify them, you have to fix all the errors in the compiler, or think a lot about modeling the entities within your game. So I think it could hinder fast creativity in one way, which is why I was going to experiment at some point with a dynamic language and making a game to compare it with my experience with monogame and fsharp. And then also the aspect of having to mutate state, because you do have to pay the price, but you can have an element of immutability where it isn't as costly, and then internally mutate where it is costly. And in the game that I was writing on my YouTube channel, it was using it was fairly intensive to work out the collision detection, but because I kind of trimmed the amount of grids that I'd be working with, it wasn't too bad. It was only using it was some of the collision detection that was similar to what was used in Little Big Planet. Speculative contacts, I think it's called. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take what the Grumpy Game Dev put in the channel and just going to put it in one of my tabs to look at later. Thanks for that. And Grumpy Game Dev says, because monogame needed one mutable, but I will feel ashamed. Yeah. One of the things that you can get totally caught up with fsharp is using the mutable keyword and being ashamed or thinking that it's bad, but it isn't bad. It's only bad if you abuse it. I mean, you do need to mutate in certain places. If you look at parts of the fsharp compiler inside list, actually list.cons internally mutates the tail, I think it is. So fsharp compiler mutates itself. It's full of mutable state. You do need it at certain areas. It really depends what you're building. I think Frank's built just about everything. He's one of those 100 times coders that you see. Let's see about getting this working. So project options. What do we need to get the project options? Let me tear off this tab and just shove it on the screen. If we shove that there, shove that on that side of the screen, get rid of this, and we'll just, for project options, we're just going to grab them straight out like this and copy and paste because we can. Actually, I'll make this a bit smaller, make that a bit bigger. That's better. Yeah, Chas is saying, oh yeah, time for the project crack and the worst part of tooling. Yeah, this is just awful. It feels like it's an interface from 1972, even though I wasn't born then. But yeah, it's just not good. Frank is saying, someone had a nice .NET standard project parser beaming in to adopt that. Enrico Sada has a nice extractor of fsharp parameters that worked quite nice. I mean, I had to do that manually when I was streaming the soothsayer stuff from a few years ago, and it was awful doing trying to manually get it out of the project file with. I think I was running. Excuse me. I was running the compiler. I was running MS Build with /diagnostic, and then run it through grep to get the output, and it did work. But obviously, it's easy to do it with Enrico's utility. Yeah, like Chris said, the Enrico's .NET Proj info. I'll probably be using that at some point. So that's also another thing. Project D would be revisiting Soothsayer to actually get it into Visual Studio Code to... I don't know whether there's much point now, because there's other add-ins which show reverse engineered .NET code. Because the whole point of Soothsayer was it was an add-in for Visual Studio Code where you could point it to a DLL and it showed you what the DLL looked like in terms of an fsharp signature file or pseudo signature file. It just gives you the type definitions for everything within the DLL. So that was the whole concept behind Soothsayer. But also the other aspects were it was supposed to show you diagrams of the code, dependency diagrams and things like that, and I did start to do some of those and then I got bored. So just looking at the chat again, Gareth saying, Frank, if you work with Fabulous, yeah, Frank says he helped write some of the engine, a small part, and Chet Husk is saying, do you know DPI doesn't have a version that works with the version of FCS? You do know DPI doesn't have a version that works. What's DPI? Dots per inch? .NET Project. I don't know what it is. .NET Project, okay. Too many acronyms. Script project options. Yeah, I should really get this working now. Project from the script file. This is the quickest one to get in. Hey, that's not in my copy buffer. So I'll just steal this piece of code. Oh man, I've already done that. Seriously going insane. So file is, what's that supposed to be? This is supposed to be the file name. Source file string input current source text. A bit of duplication, but we don't care. So we should get project options here, and then write some nasty code like that so I can keep it on the screen. And then is there a command we can do to get the hashers for this to center interactive? Can we do that with Packet? I don't have Packet. Chesk says you probably want to do use net SDK equals true on the project options call. And so we don't get all the junk assemblies. Okay, yeah, okay. Use net SDK. So that's this guy here. So is this extra project options or other flags? I'm sure I had this installed. Sorry, it's use SDK ref. Okay. Foundless. Yeah, Gareth says use the global thing. Do we have this to go? Right, so now we can use the tool like what Chithusk says, which was, where's it gone? I can't find it. I've completely lost it. Dotnet to install packet. Okay, you probably want to use SDK thing. Fuck. Right. Yeah, I normally install tools globally, but you can. Yeah, Chris, I do. I've got that bash alias. It's not. Yeah, I got packet aliased. I can't remember the command line tune now. Yeah. VSC. Oh god, look at that, it's insane. Which one of these opens vscode with a file? To go to the old school. Can't think of the command line. It's this guy here, isn't it? No. I thought it was that one. Oh yeah, oh, fuck's sake. It's because that I've got an extra alias where you can. There's a whole bunch of VS Code stuff in Z shell with start with VSC, and you can do all sorts of junk. I'm probably going to want to move this to Maven Monitor because it's got things that I don't want people to see. I think my GitHub key. Yeah, I'll get rid of this packet stuff. There's no real need for it now. And That's strange, I just reloaded it. That's better. I'll kill the old session now. I'm sure it reloaded it with source. That's weird. So chat says, I got rid of the command for this reason. Yeah, it's annoying when you get an alias colliding. You can also use dotnet tool manifest and dotnet tool install packet, dotnet packet xx. That would be for a local install, which is really good for things like Gitpod. So I don't know, because it comes to local tools. Yeah, local tools are quite useful for when you've got things like Docker containers and things like that. You can actually set them up locally rather than globally, where you might not have the right permissions. It's especially an issue on Mac sometimes, where things just get locked away or certain directories are get moved about where you can install them. So if you get a local folder under your control, you can just set it up quite easy. And Chris says reset Z shell. I find that source normally does that, but oh well. I tried developing in a container with Gitpod for a while, but it was I'd done some Rust work with it, and it was quite well. It worked quite well. It wasn't as slow, but some of the .NET stuff, whether it's C# or fsharp, it was really slow. I'm not sure why, because the machines are quite well spec'd. I just find it was quite a chunk of latency. So you want to generate our packages. Generate load scripts. Oh, I haven't installed Packet ever. Yeah, Gareth, containers do make moving things about easy, and especially if you're moving from company to company, you can just pass different containers, but I think they'll get better and better in the future. Found packet lock, I didn't know packet. Nothing worse than when you do a live stream, everything, the whole contents of your brain just disappears and melts, and you can't remember any commands or do anything. You can manage to talk. That's about it. So I just want to do packet, but then convert from NuGet. That's all I'll do, isn't it? File already present. Packet install. Is that all it needed? Looks like it. Right, so where are these load scripts gone? You have to excuse me, I've never done the load script thing before with Packet. I've always generated them with VS for Mac. Anyone know? Bring back up this again. Where would they be? Yeah, I've done the packet convert from NuGet. Oh, maybe yeah, I didn't do it, did I? Oh, useless. We'll just force it. So the dependency should be in, and really only using a fsharp compiler service. The load scripts is really just a #r for your project. So what it'll do is it look for all the DLL dependencies in your project and generate the #r scripts, so you can just send the whole lot over to FSI. It's really just a way of sending everything over all at once for your current project. Send all current project references to FSI would be a better term for it. Garrett says, I need that in my life. Yeah, it is quite useful. As you can see, I'm very rusty with this stuff. I don't tend to use FSI that much. I use it for small discrete functions, testing things, like if I'm modifying a list in a certain way or things like that, I'll tend to use it in a discrete function. But in a bigger project, I've tended to not use it. I think it's more because I've been a mono user and it used to break a lot, so it never made sense to use it much. It was always really slow as well. And Gareth says, I need FSI because I don't know how to get project references. I never use FSI, yeah. Often I use my own types, and moving those to FSI is a pain. Yes, it is a pain. But hopefully you've learned something off the stream that I've learned from other people. So we've got our load scripts. So make this a bit bigger so we can see what type of project is this. It's dotnet co-op 3.1. So are these load scripts? There's loads of them. Can't I just have one? Well, I only really care about that, so... main.group.fsx. Okay, yeah, I get it. So it's create one for the group. Okay. And Frank says, I think I'm the only fsharp developer that doesn't know how to use Packet. To be honest, I used Packet up until .NET Core came out, and then I found the need to use it became a lot less, and I don't use it unless I really need to. Unless I need to run some sort of script that would generate multiple things, which was slightly more complex than doing it in an MS build file. That's the only time I'd really start to use Packet. Sometimes with lots of assemblies in different projects, like if you've got a web project, backend, and a normal app, you'd have 3 different groups of NuGet references and stuff, and it'd get confused, and Packet would be more useful for complex topologies like that. I can take it and leave it, so we can send this stuff to FSI. Send file. So that doesn't have a command. So this should send all them references over. So it's compiler service, concurrent collections, a whole host of junk there. It doesn't send our current file, which is fine. So now we should be able to go through here, and we can shove them through, and we should be able to create a checker. So it's not defined, color not defined. So these are the 9 things that you get when you're using FSI. It's probably why I don't use it much. Frank says I will use makefiles till I die. Yeah, in some ways they're a whole lot easier. And Gareth says if I'm not in dotnet, I'll just use a batch build that rebuilds everything. And that's also useful as well. I think you can overcomplicate things sometimes. you just need to use what works really and nothing too elaborate. So the fs checker is not defined. So why would that not be defined? So now my completion has stopped. That's not good. Tell you what, reload this. It's probably because I've screwed about with the project assemblies NuGet packet. Okay, see you later, Chat Husk. Thanks for dropping by. I'll see you again, hopefully. Hopefully with more stuff getting done. So I'll send our references again. Hopefully this will work this time. So I think I'll try and get a bit more of this finished, but I'll have to stop streaming in about 10 or 15 minutes because I need to get some food. Compiler is not defined. So the compiler service is sent. So that's as if it hadn't run all of that script. The value namespace fs checker is not defined. Oh, this is a pain. So Chris says, have you enabled the .NET Core version of FSI in i8 config? Probably not. Let's have a look. If it's not default, I don't think I'll have done it. Use SDK scripts. Okay. I'll reload the whole window. I should reinitialize quite quick. And main. So let me check the stream in a sec. My laptop fans just come on. It's alarming. No, looks okay. Cool. So go inside packet, we need load script, so we need to find main again. Main group. So send file. That looks a lot healthier at the beginning. And then if we go through these line by line, system IO, source code now is not defined. Oh, how annoying. Rather than waste time debugging this, look at it later, what I'll do is we'll set up fast. Too much junk in that file. So our target framework is, I've forgotten. We'll just compile this quick because it just can be easier. Project C. I thought it was C#. Project C. Okay. Target framework. Project up 1. And we will call this what the detail is called, which will be Project C. Do that? Probably. And try sending line 5 again. Let me try that then. See, that looks like it works. Send the next line, it looks like it works, but then you send the checker. That worked that time. Okay, thanks Chris. So, these are superfluous, we're not actually using them. File name, source file. That probably won't work because it isn't the absolute file name, only the local file name. Oh, it has. And then if we get our project options, I can't remember the command for send block selection alternate. Oh yeah, I knew that. So we've got our project options. So these look good. So what we're basically doing now is the project options are basically the options that you send to FSC as compiler options. So you give it a list of file names and a list of whether to use the default .NET framework, and also what references you want to use. So that's looked like it's worked. And then this should give us parse results. No. Why is that not working? I think it's because it's not a script, it's not getting the tabs and stuff properly, I don't know. The indentation, sorry. Incomplete structures point. Trying to send the line, not the selection. Yeah, true, I am. I'm pressing Alt /, not Alt Enter. Dummy. So now at this point, thanks Chris again. So now we should have the check file answer and the parse results. Wow, we've achieved not much in quite a long period of time. Well, hopefully somebody's learning something anyway, especially me. So parse results. I can't type. Parse results 2. I'm not going to call it 2. That's just a copy and paste thing. It's better. So from this parse results, we should be able to request something from it. So no. We have to revert back to using the checker. The API is horrible. Roslyn API is in some ways a lot nicer than this. So now we can ask the checker to give us something. I can't remember the API at all now. check file answer will be an option type. And that's a discriminant union. So this is annoying how it doesn't give you the an explosion of, not an explosion, a rundown of what it actually is. Can't you generate? Sure, right click generate stuff. Info panel, I'll try that. Can't remember the command for that. There we go, that's what should be in the tooltip, this stuff. So I don't have to use the info panel. So we might have an aborted. I have to prefix it, don't I? Do I? No, I don't. If it's aborted, we'll just ignore that. If it's not aborted, it must be the succeeded. I'm sure this API is different. I'm sure it just used to be an option. Maybe I'm wrong, I can't actually remember. fsharp accepts PRs, yes it does. And it can be fun to do at times. Crisp. Aborted, yeah. Aborted is nice. I've locked this, haven't I? Unlock. I broke the info panel. Never mind. We didn't need to know that. And 2H Shrike says, it's fsharp gaining popularity. I see more and more people use it. It looks like a very nicely designed language overall. I think it is gaining popularity slowly. It is a very nice language. It takes a bit of getting used to, but when you do get used to it, you can find very simple solutions to quite complex problems, and it helps you to think about things in a different way to what you might have been taught if you learned object-oriented code. You can often get very simple solutions to problems which are very complex with things like C#. Obviously you can build simple things in C#, but sometimes the default, you tend to get a lot of Java type patterns appear in lots of enterprise type C# code. But yeah, it is nice to use. I'm just going to fully prefix this, it's just quicker for me to get going. Oh, tooltips stop working. Oh, come on. Success? I forgot what the type was now. No, that's wrong. Info panel. I've locked the info panel on something odd, I think. Unlock info panel. Yeah, I'd locked it on a blank screen or something. I don't know. For me, that padlock's the wrong way around for my brain. I always think of that as being unlocked rather than locked. That's just me. So I'll have a look, see what's on results. Why is my completions just aren't working very well today? Succeeded is not defined. Oh, it's just results, isn't it? That's why. Stupid. Check file answer. Yeah, I fully qualified it before. Oh, bollocks. So it's annoying that I don't get completions at that point. So you can get some stuff there. So, yeah, this is the... I'll show that this was on the checker API, but this is the type checked results we've got access to now. So from these type checked results, we can now get declaration info, symbol information, tooltip text, and all those kind of things that I talked about at the beginning. That if we asked our chatbot what was on line 34, column 6, this is the process it would have to go through within our code to be able to extract the result out. Of course, I think ChetHusk suggested that we might be able to get access to something within Ionide, so we wouldn't have to create an additional type checker. So we could just ask Ionide to get some of the results back. And then I said maybe we could access Ionide's cache to see if it was in there as well. Or something along those lines. So let's see if we can just get a result back before I have to go at 8 o'clock. Get declaration lists. We'll just try for get use of a symbol. Implementation file. Open partial. Project contact. All symbols. Declaration list info. So this is used to get the items for declarations list. This is like dot completion. Declaration, the symbol based dot completion. Declaration location. What I'm looking for is symbol at location. What's that? A checker option. For now, we'll just kind of abort on this path. Have a look in the checker. Pass file, pass results. Hey, it must be on that one. So we've got navigation options. Pass tree. Yeah, it must be on the check results. I'm so rusty with this API, it's just unbelievable. Results. I know what I forgot to do on this stream. I forgot to press record. I was going to upload it to YouTube afterwards, but I guess I'm not because I never recorded it. Get method to symbols, tilted text. I'm sure there was a symbol at location. I must be mistaken. Structured tilted text. I'll just go for getting the tilted text at a certain location because I've forgotten the API. And we need a line and column. So we've got those above. I'll move these out. And Gareth's saying you can use Twitch to export the stream to YouTube as long as you have store past broadcasts on. I think I do have that turned on. In the past, they used to automatically go to YouTube by default without me even doing anything. So I used to have about 10 or 15 streams on YouTube, and then I think I made them private or unlisted a few years ago. Because it's just me rambling on about Soothsayer, and it was kind of embarrassing, so I got rid of them. Tooltip text, so we need line column. These could be 0 based or 1 based, I forget, but we'll have a look in a sec. Line text. This is annoying for the line text. Chris, can you remember if you actually need to put anything in line text? Does it make a difference? Otherwise, what you'd have to do is, because you don't know what the line is, you'd have to send the line column in. Yes, I think you do need to do that. Well, we can cheat for now. It would be possible if you sent a remote server a line column and a file name, it could pull it all out and do it for you, but we'll just cheat for now. Cheating's good. 9, line 9. Why am I doing line 9? It would be line 10. I think I've added an extra line since then, that's why. So we'll go for line 10, column 10. I'll send that to FSI, line 10, column 10. So Chris says, so yes, we pull it from our internal state and LSP sends us only the line and column. Yeah. So line 10 being this, so what we can do is in here, give it a line, we give it a column at end of names. So this is the column at the end of like a dot list, or what's the term used in the compiler? An island list or something like that. So we give it line text, which would be that. And then we give it names, token tag, user op name. These are new things, I don't know what these are. Because it's getting a bit long. Just shove them down on. Need a comma. Oh. Don't need one there. One in there, and string. So let test equals. So what we'll do is just bodge this in and then print it out. Percentage here, and then we'll put test. No, we won't. Oh, too trigger happy. So this one will return none. We're just going to wrap it in simple non-sum. And this one we'll do check our results, get that, and then we'll pipe that into sum, just so it's the same as that one. So this should return an option, and so I haven't finished this function yet, so it's going to return a function. Line text names, names of the columns at that ident point would be none, because we're not inside. Like if we're here, it would be fsharp checker would be the first element in the island identifiers. I think they're called islands. So we don't need anything in that one. The last one, token tag. Can't remember what that is. We'll just go for a 0. Try fsharp tag token identifier. Yeah, it's ages since I looked at this code, so I'll probably look at some of my older code to see what it was. Fsharp tag token identifier. You probably find that that's a 0. Can I go to source? No, I'm sure that is mapped to 0 anyway, or it's some arbitrary number. And use op name. Use op name, I don't care, none. So what's up with this? Missing arguments, int string. So I've got line colon, line colon, line text, names, which is empty list, token tag, use op name. I'm just going to shove these on one line. Have that to none. So this is results. So what's that complaining about? Uppercase identifier is generally not. Oh, because I haven't prefixed it. Okay, cool. That's probably hidden the error from being sensible. So now we should have the check results back. This should get us something back. No. Expected string, but was any option? Oh, it's async, that's why. We'll just run this synchronously. So that should return us back an option of a tooltip text. Oh, come on. It was a type string, but it was option, not parameter of type option. The none has is not needed. It's an optional parameter. Oh, on the tooltip text. Oh, okay, yeah, we can sack that. Cool, that's a problem. Not reading the API enough. So I don't think we actually got anything back. So we didn't actually get back anything back from that line. Oh well. So it thinks that line 10 right, so if we run create a new checker, line 10, column 10, source file, source text, get the project options. Each of these I'm highlighting and doing Alt Enter to send them to interactive. So we've got our pass checks back. This should get us the test back. So it's still none. But we're actually using the API and we're querying back to So Chris is saying you don't get check results back, it's aborted. Okay. Ah, yeah, so it is, yeah. So it's probably aborted because there's an error in parse results or the type check results. So if we look in parse results, can't remember there we go. Yeah. Parameter error, assembly reference mscallib DLR was not found. So if we did check that earlier, we could have sorted that out. Huh. Oh well. Well, yeah, blame ChatHusk. I'm kind of out of time. I would have liked to get a valid tooltip back. Just like as I said, the idea for this project is it would be a chatbot for Twitch where you could say, chatbot, tell me the type on line 35 in vscode, and it would tell you back what the type was or some aspect of explaining something about the code. So it's kind of like an interactive fsauto. We could use fsauto, which we could probably do in the future, and we could piggyback on functionality that already exists. We could host fsauto in the cloud, and I could send my file diffs on the file that I'm working on up to fsharp interactive, then a chatbot could query that directly. But I just thought we'd start with something kind of like the simplest piece ever, which was querying itself, so we can get the essence of the simplest possible usage of the compiler to get some sort of type information from our code, and then slowly work towards building the bot, which could then query a local service on my machine, or like I said, on Azure to pull the results back. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed that so far, and thanks for everyone for joining me, and hopefully I'll see you next time. Bye for now.